How's it going? I am Dylan. This is All You Can Board, and fear not, Marvel Champions is back. We have our finally have our preview article for the new big box expansion. It's been teased for the past couple weeks, and it is has finally dropped. We're going to talk about it today. Obviously, there's been this sort of a gap in Marvel Champions content. We got so used to so many packs, so much content coming out, not just actual releases, but also the preview articles, the tease, what was coming months down the line. It's honestly, in my opinion, probably for the best that we got this break. I think that it was starting to get to the point where there was just too much Marvel Champions content for anyone to keep up with. I mean, I shouldn't say anyone, like it is, if that's the one game you play, you know, grabbing all that content as it comes out makes sense and it is a lot easier to do. But if you're playing other games too, if you have, you know, other things going on in your life, getting 2 packs released a month sometimes, even though it necessarily wasn't every month, we'd still, you know, have 2 packs this month and have an off month, whatever the case may be. It was just a lot. There was a lot of content out there. We've been spoiled by Marvel Champions content. So we had a bit of a break here. It is coming back in a big way with this new big box expansion that is centered around the X-Force. It's called Next Evolution. It has 2 heroes in the box like we've gotten used to. That is Domino and Cable. It has 5 scenarios like we've gotten used to as well. And it's also going to kick off a line of X-Force heroes, which means, yes, we are going to be getting Deadpool. They didn't say that explicitly, but I would be absolutely shocked if we did not get Deadpool, because we even get a Deadpool Ally card that we're going to talk about today. Then we'll maybe give us some teases on that, what that hero pack's going to be like. So before I get into this, I will just say that this video is going to focus specifically on Domino and Cable. We have a lot of cards to talk about with those two, as well as some brand new mechanics to Marvel Champions, a new card type, a new player card type, I should say, to talk about that is centered around Cable's kits and Cable's cards as well. So there's just a lot to talk about there. I'm not going to talk about all the specific cards in the scenarios. I'm going to start by just kind of giving a rundown of which scenarios are going to be in this box, because we have had all 5 announced, so you can kind of get an idea of what to expect. But I'm not going to get into the actual specific cards that are previewed here. I'm going to wait until the actual box has been released, and we'll talk about that in the review. I find that the scenarios are just, it's also a little bit harder to fully, you know, form an opinion without having played them. The player cards, it's a little bit easier because we've even then you want to kind of play the cards to really get a grasp on whether or not you enjoy the hero. But it's easier to kind of make assumptions and guesses and kind of like lean towards what you're going to like or not like. I find that with the scenarios, it's a lot harder to kind of formulate that opinion without actually being able to play the scenarios. So I'm going to go over them right now just so you know what's going to be in the box. So there are 5 scenarios, and I'm also not super familiar with the X-Force and X-Men. I've mentioned this in the past. That's one section of Marvel that has been, you know, the gap for me in terms of knowledge. So some of this might be way more exciting for other people that have, you know, grown up with these characters and now are seeing them in this game than me, who some of these characters I'm discovering for the very first time. So like I said, 5 scenarios. The first one is going to be called Morlock Siege. Morlock Siege is going to involve the Marauders, and actually the first 2 scenarios are going to involve the Marauders, but it's going to be in a different way. So the first one is Morlock Siege, and the second one that involves them is going to be one where it's called On the Run is the name of the actual scenario, and it's going to be about them kidnapping Cable's adopted daughter, Hope Summers, and you having to get Hope Summers back. So the first 2 scenarios are going to kind of involve the same characters, just in a different way, and you're going to encounter them differently. From there, we go into the Unstoppable Juggernaut, which is going to be the Juggernaut villain, which I'm sure people are excited about because even I know that character and I'm not super into the X-Men and X-Force. And then Mr. Sinister is going to be the 4th one, and that leaves for the 5th scenario, Strife, who I had never actually heard of Strife before, but apparently it is a clone of Cable, I believe is what it says. So yeah, I'm not familiar with Strife, but Strife is going to be the final boss of this expansion. So those are the 5 scenarios. But we do get 2 really exciting brand new heroes. That's what we're going to focus on talking about today, Cable and Domino. We're going to start with Cable because Cable is the one I'm most excited to talk about. It involves a brand new player card being introduced into Marvel Champions, and that is player side schemes. So side schemes are something we're familiar with. It's been in the game since the beginning. These side schemes are player focused. They're going to be in your hand. They can be used as resources. They are cards in your deck. When you play them, they're going to be, they have a cost and everything to play them as well. When you play them, they become a side scheme in play, but there are no downsides to the side scheme. It's just something that it's in play. It's not hindering you whatsoever. If you are able to complete that side scheme, you are going to get a huge boost. And some of these are really, really powerful. So I think this is almost, my guess is that this is sort of them hearing how much people liked things like the Hela scenario, and they've done it a couple other times where it's these, you know, you have your main focus of being the villain, but there's these sort of side quests, these side schemes that you can engage in if you so choose, especially to build your deck around, that gives you these sort of like extra little things that you can do. You know, it appeals to the, you know, I'm a huge fan of RPGs, you know, like especially like the classic JRPGs growing up, and so much of what I loved about those games is not even specifically the main plot, but the side quests. I want to go into an area and I want to do everything I possibly can before I even go onto the main plot. I think this is sort of appeasing, you know, that desire in me and in others, where yes, I have to defeat the villain, but in the meantime, here's these side schemes I can do that are going to power me up, that are going to, you know, it's almost like me grinding in an RPG to get me more powerful to be able to take down the villain a little bit more easily. So I love it. I think it's super, super cool introduction. We're going to see the Cable's entire essence is 100% built around these side schemes. So if this turns out to be, I'll say that like right from the get-go, if this turns out to be something that you don't enjoy in the game, like you don't like the side scheme element, it becoming a player focus, I don't think you're going to like Cable, because that is entirely what Cable is about. You cannot play Cable and get around the side scheme inclusion. So that is one benefit if you love them. Could be a downside if you don't love them. It might ends up being a character you are not gravitating towards because of that. But all that being said, let's get into Cable. We're going to start with the alter ego, of course. It's been so long since I've done this. It feels great to get back into doing these previews. So the alter ego for Cable is Nathan Summers, recovery of 4, hit points 12, hand size 6. The ability here, first one, you may include player side schemes of any aspect in your deck. I will say right off the bat, we are going to see side schemes from Justice and Leadership today, from Domino and from Cable. This is a character that is 100% going to improve as the entire X-Force line is released, especially, probably beyond that as well. But when you have a new card like this introduced, and his ability, like number one right off the bat, is that you can include them from every aspect. I mean, there's 2 aspects we don't even have them for yet. So at some point, this is going, or not at some point, throughout the year as the X-Force packs are released, Cable's abilities and capabilities are going to grow as there's more deck building stuff for you to consider, and more of these side schemes get released. So it'll just be interesting to see how Cable is now and how Cable is at the end of the year when we have a bunch more cards to deck build with. So Soldier X is his ability setup. Search your deck and discard pile for a player side scheme and put it into play. So Cable gets to start with one of these side schemes in play for free of your choice, which is a really big deal because they're all very different. You can kind of look at the villain you're fighting against and say, you know, what would be the most beneficial for me to be able to knock off with a side scheme right from the gate to power up my characters, to power up the board in my favor, whatever the case may be. You can kind of look at that and say which side scheme makes the most sense. Really, really cool setup ability. I like it a lot. And obviously plays into the new side schemes. Next, we've got the hero side, Cable. Really good stat line, 2s across the board. Hit points of 12 still, obviously, and hand size only goes down by 1 to 5. The responsibility here is after Cable defeats a side scheme, ready him. So again, being all about side schemes, you want to try to have them in play constantly. Every time you defeat one, you're going to be able to ready Cable. And because he has a really good stat line, readying Cable is pretty decent. Like it's more than decent. It's really good, especially if you're doing it regularly. If you're getting these side schemes out and play regularly, getting another, a hit with Cable, another thwart with Cable, whatever the case may be, or just being able to have defended on your turn and then be able to ready on your turn and still be efficient. Really, really good. And because there's so many opportunities with all the side schemes we're going to go over, I feel like this is something you're going to hit relatively often. Not as often as, some characters who have these ready abilities, because it does take a little bit more to wear down a side scheme sometimes. But I think that there's enough of them, like I said, and it's enough of a focus on what you're doing that I think you'll be able to get them done pretty quickly. All right, going into actual side scheme cards. So normally I would go into all the player-specific cards or hero-specific cards. I'm just going to do his hero-specific side scheme. Then we're going to go into a bunch of other side schemes that are talked about in this article, and then we'll go back to the player-focused cards, hero-focused cards, because I really want to just stress the side schemes and also just show you what you're going to be doing with them in the game. So first one is Technovirus Purge. So this one is a Victory 0 card, so it does go into the Victory display. Victory display is something that will come into play with these side schemes, as we'll see as we go on. This one specifically, characters other than Cable cannot remove threat from Technovirus Purge. This is a specific side scheme for Cable only. While Technovirus Purge is in the victory display, Nathan Summers and Cable gain the Psionic trait, and Cable gets +1 thwart, +1 attack, and +1 defense. He becomes a 3/3/3. That is wild. This is probably one of your most obvious targets to have used a setup ability for and have it in play, because you only have 5 threat you have to remove on here. Yes, it has to be done with just Cable, but if you make it a priority in the first couple turns of the game, you can easily have this in your victory display, and now Cable's a 3/3/3 for the entire scenario, which is such a huge boost, especially because you're getting the extra readies with defeating side schemes as you go. Like, an amazing start to these side schemes, and one that I think is going to be hard to. It's going to be hard to vote against this one being the one that you put in your setup at the start, unless, again, there's going to be situational moments and ones where it makes more sense to do another one. But this one's just so good that it's going to be hard to choose against this. So awesome start with Technovirus Purge. Next up, we've got Call for a Backup. This is a leadership one. One cost. I didn't even mention the cost on the Technovirus Purge, which makes it so good. It's 0. The cost is 0 on Technovirus Purge. So good. Call for Backup. The cost is 1. Again, player side scheme. It has 3 threat per player in the game. Victory 0. When defeated, each player may search their deck and discard pile for an ally and put it directly into play. And what's crazy here is it's not just you. It's every single player may do this. That is such a huge boost. Yes, I mean, if you're playing with 2 players, it's already 6 scheme you have to, or 6 threat you have to deal with, and it keeps going up by 3. So it's not like a small amount by any means, but it's also not too large. I mean, that's to commit to like every player being able to remove 3 threat on average, to be able to everyone get an ally into play. I mean, having everyone get an ally into play as blockers, as contributors, as to be able to use their attack and thwart. Like, there's so much. If you're playing a 4-player game and you all got an ally into play, that is a huge buoost to the game at that point, especially because you're only paying 1 to get this card into play in the first place. And like we talked about, not a lot of threats to remove on it. So really good leadership side scheme. Next one is Establish Perimeter. This is the protection side scheme. 1 cost, victory 0. When defeated, give each identity a tough status card. Also really good. I think the leadership one's a little bit better, but the fact that everyone, again, is getting a tough status card, every identity, I should say, is getting a tough status card, huge deal, especially in protection, to be able to like know that all those identities now are protected for at least the next hit without having to worry about how big that hit is, what kind of damage you're going to take. Just a really solid card. Another example of why these side schemes are so good and why you want to prioritize them. And I should have mentioned, it's only 2 threats per player that you have to remove from it. Measly, should be super easy to do. Really good card. Next up, we've got, going into, the hero-specific cards now, we've got Bodyslide. So Bodyslide is a 0-cost card that says change form. Each other player may change form to the form you're in now. So it's I mean, a 0 cost to change form is really good. We've seen cards like this before that are specifically about changing your form and having those extra ways to kind of flip back and forth. Really good. I love the added flavor of each other player may change the form that you're in. It doesn't force them to, but now in multiplayer, you're kind of giving people the option of like, when I'm going in relation to my teammates, you kind of like strategize it in a way where they get the maximum benefit out of your card as well, by being able to be like, okay, well, I will get this free change to this form, then I'll heal up, then on my turn now I have my regular switch, I'll switch back. Or they've already taken their turn and they had to finish in alter ego to heal, but they'd rather be in hero because they're set up for it. Now they can switch it back. There's just so much functionality here. I just really like it as a card. I think it's going to be fun to use in multiplayer for sure. Next up, we've got Precognition. Another 0-cost event card. Lots of 0-cost cards for, I think every card we've looked at for Cable right now so far is 0 cost for his hero-specific cards. 0-cost event. Hero action, look at the top X cards of the encounter deck, where X is the number of side schemes in the victory display. You may discard one of those cards, put the rest back in any order. So this is when we start to get into seeing that it's not just about defeating side schemes for Cable, it's also about how many you're collecting in the victory display, because he has cards that will count how many cards are in there and scale in power based on how many are in there. So you want to continue, even if it's not for the initial effect, you just really want to keep getting side schemes into that victory display. So being able to draw that many cards from the encounter deck, put them back in any order, and discard one is such a good setup for the next, if you had 3 or 4 side schemes in that victory display, to know what the next 4 cards are, or 3 cards are, and one is now discarded. I mean, it's such a huge boost. Being able to plan that far ahead, really great card. Again, a bit situational depending if your side schemes are built up. Maybe at the start of this game, or definitely at the start of the game, you wouldn't want to draw this in your hand because it's going to be really a lot weaker than it's going to be in like, round 5 or round 6 or whatever. So a card you want to draw later, but when you get it at the optimal time, it's going to be really powerful. Next up, we've got Mind Scan. This is a 2-cost card that is an event, hero action. Remove 3 threat from a scheme. Remove 1 additional threat from that scheme for each side scheme in the victory display. So again, go into that victory display, 2 cost, remove 3 threat. We've seen that very, very often. Nothing special about that. But as soon as you start getting even 1 side scheme in the victory display, removing 4 threat for 2, removing 5 threat for 2, 6 threat for 2, all things that are not, it's not wild to even think of it scaling that much. You will be getting multiple side schemes in the victory display as the game goes on. So just a really powerful card that, again, is going to need time to hit its powerful potential. If you draw this too early, it's going to feel weak because it will still be weak at that point. So a lot of Cable's cards, you really want to build Cable's. Almost like building Cable's kit is also building your victory display to the right size to have all these cards hit their full potential. Think about it that way. Next up is Telekinetic Blast. Awesome card here. 3-cost event. Hero action deals 6 damage to an enemy for 3, but then deal 1 additional damage to that enemy for each side scheme in the victory display. So again, I love huge attack cards. The fact that this one can scale, I don't want to say endlessly, but you control how much this scales. I mean, again, you have 4 side schemes in your victory display. You're doing 10 damage for 3. Such a high ceiling with this card. I love it. And it's one of those cards that, again, you want to hopefully draw at the optimal time when your victory display is built up. Next up, we've got Professor. So 1-cost support, alter ego action, exhaust Professor, choose to either draw 1 card or search your deck and discard pile for a player side scheme and add it to your hand. Awesome support card. I mean, it's a really, really cheap one. You hopefully get this really, really early in the game. And then every single alter ego phase, you now can just get a free draw, which is always going to be good. Or you can specifically be getting player side schemes and adding them to your hand because you want to be building up that victory display. So getting this early is such an efficient way to power up your engine, getting side schemes out and defeated. And then later on in the game, it doesn't become useless. You're just drawing cards with it instead. You don't need the side schemes anymore. It's just such a versatile card. It kind of starts one way at the beginning of the game and evolves as the game goes on into something else. So I love it. Really, really, really solid card. All right, next up is Forced Amnesia. This is a really cool card. So 1-cost upgrade, hero response, after a non-permanent side scheme is defeated, add Forced Amnesia and that side scheme to the victory display. So it might seem a little confusing of what this card is on the surface, but essentially what you're doing is you're taking side schemes that are not player side schemes, ideally, that are the villain side schemes, and when you defeat them, those villain side schemes, that one you defeated, is going to your victory display. It's boosting your victory display and all your abilities because of that, and it's not one of your player ones. So normally if you only had, say, 4 player side schemes in your deck, you know the max that you're going to hit in your victory display is 4. This is allowing you to now take a villain side scheme and put in your victory display. It also puts Forced Amnesia in your victory display. I'm not sure if there's any reason to do that besides it not allowing you to use Forced Amnesia again later in the game because it's now stuck in your victory display. It doesn't go to your discard pile, you don't draw it again and keep putting the side schemes in your victory display. I think that's the main reason it's going in there, but maybe there's another benefit I'm sleeping on here. But just the fact that you can take a villain side scheme, put it into your victory display, power up all of Cable's abilities, really, really cool card. I like the flavor on this a lot. Caliban, a new ally leadership, 3-cost ally, 1 thwart, 2 attack, 3 health. Response, after Caliban enters play, discard cards from the top of your deck until an X-Factor, X-Force, or X-Men ally is discarded and add that ally to your hand. This is a situational card for sure. You are going to have some games where the first one you discard is an ally and it goes right into your hand and you essentially just drew an ally as the benefit for him entering play. Really good. You're going to have times where you discard like 8 cards, 10 cards off the top and you're just not hitting them at all. Or you notice the most of your allies are in your discard pile are out and Caliban's a card you don't feel safe playing or it just doesn't make sense to play. So I don't feel like this is a super powerful ally, but it really depends on the deck you've built and when you play Caliban. I think you just have to be situational about how many cards are left in my deck compared to my discard pile. Where are my allies? Do I know that they're in the deck? And how many allies have I built in my deck so the Caliban doesn't have to discard too many cards before you hit that. But there's definitely some potential with Caliban for sure. All right, Fantomex. This is one of my favorite cards that was announced here, and not because I think it's the most powerful, but just because I love the way it works. So this is a 4-cost ally. It is expensive, 3 health, only 1 thwart and 1 attack, very weak. After Fantomex enters play, search your deck and discard pile for E.V.A. and put it into play. So, and then that's it. It's just shuffle, that's the whole ability. Without knowing what E.V.A. is, this would be such a bad ally for 4. 4 is so steep for an ally with only 3 health and only 1 stat on thwart and attack. But you do get an entire support card brought into play, and that support card is E.V.A, which I'm putting up now. So 0 cost support. If Fantomex is not in play, discard E.V.A. They have to coexist together. You cannot have E.V.A in play without Fantomex. Action, exhaust E.V.A to choose one of these 3 things. Either remove 1 threat from a scheme, deal 1 damage to an enemy, or heal 1 damage from Fantomex. The healing 1 damage is really important because that is going to add to the longevity of Fantomex, meaning that the E.V.A then is going to stay in play longer. I honestly don't know whether this is I don't think this is that powerful of a combo of cards here. I just love the idea that there are these 2 cards that are very linked in this way to deck building. There's stuff done like this in Keyforge, which I really like, and some other card games I'm forgetting now as well, but where there's 2 cards distinctly linked in your deck, and that they want to work with each other, or otherwise they either don't work at all or they're like a lot weaker. I love that kind of idea in card games, so it's the idea that I'm drawn to here more than the power level. I don't know whether a 4-cost ally is way too steep to justify the coolness of having these 2 cards in play. Healing 1 damage consistently from Fantomex so that ally never leaves and they can keep attacking for 1 and thwarting for 1 is obviously why that stat line is lower and could still be really, really good. It's just something that I'm going to have to play with. It's going to be in practice that we discover whether this is how good this is or how bad this is or whether it's mediocre or whatever. I just, on a surface level, really, really cool. Mission planning, 2-cost event, play only if there is a side scheme in the victory display, which you will hopefully not have a problem doing with Cable. Hero action until the end of the phase. Allies you control do not take consequential damage. Really high power potential on this. It really, again, just depends how much your ally display is built up at that point, making sure you have that side scheme out, and then making sure that when you're playing this, it's on a turn where you can take full advantage of your allies without that consequential damage going through to really feel like this card benefits the cost as well as all the stipulations around it. So lots of potential on this card I think could be really powerful, but again, is going to be a situational one as well. Uncanny X-Force. We've had Uncanny X-Men. This is a 2-cost support. Play under any player's control, max 1 team card per player. This is a team card. If each of your characters has the X-Force trait, each ally you control gains +1 thwart and takes -1 consequential damage after thwarting a side scheme. Big deal with the side scheme thing because this is going to absolutely help Cable get those side schemes defeated quicker because this isn't like a 1-turn thing. This is a support card that stays in play. They have a permanent +1 thwart as long as this is out, and they have a permanent -1 consequential damage when they're thwarting side schemes, which for a lot of allies, that's going to mean they just don't take consequential damage when they thwart side schemes. Makes it way easier to get rid of them, build up that victory display, power up Cable in general. I think this is going to be a huge part of his strategy to getting more side schemes in the victory display early and then powering up all his cards for the rest of the game. And then we have Deadpool. So Deadpool is the basic ally that is introduced here. Honestly, the thing I was most excited about when I saw that we were getting a Deadpool ally is just it potentially teasing what we can expect from the Deadpool hero pack, because normally there are some shared DNA between the ally of a hero and then the hero pack that releases. So that being said, this is a 3-cost, 3 health ally, 2 thwart, 2 attack, decent stats all around. Forced interrupt, when Deadpool would be defeated by consequential damage, instead heal 3 damage from him and then add an acceleration token to the main scheme. This is wild. This is, I think this probably is a really good indicator of what we might be able to expect with Deadpool, the hero pack, or what they're going to try to delve into. But this essentially, if Deadpool's not taking a hit for you, if Deadpool's not blocking or being killed in some other way, Deadpool's permanent. Every single time you can thwart and you can attack as much as you want every single turn. Every time he's going to die, he's going to go right back up to full health. He essentially has infinite health as long as that's the only way he's dying. That is wild, but of course you're adding acceleration tokens to the main scheme, which is going to eventually get unmanageable and potentially lose you the game. So you have to use Deadpool at the right time and decide also when are you going to go all out with Deadpool and say, I don't care what this acceleration tokens because I'm close enough to the win because getting the extra 6 damage between every acceleration token is worth it. That's what you're weighing. I wonder if in the hero pack for Deadpool, he's going to have a similar mechanic where the hero can't die. Essentially, he has hit points, but but if he dies from a certain source, or anytime his hit points are wiped to 0, instead of dying, you know, you either have to add acceleration tokens or get extra encounter cards or something, and you essentially have this permanent hero. That could be a cool way to incorporate Deadpool. There's no sign of like fourth wall breaking on this card, which is, I mean, it's an ally card. They probably couldn't fit all that onto it. I hope that's something that's present in the actual hero pack. We'll have to wait and see. But either way, very, very cool card in Deadpool. That is Cable. Those are all the Cable cards we were unveiled. Really quickly, I think Cable sounds very, very cool, but it is so much going to be based around how fun it is to do these player side schemes. I think it's going to be interesting. I think building up your victory display and having that be something Cable focuses on is a really, really cool element. But again, it's one of those things that in practice, we're going to have to test it out and see how it feels to play with those player side schemes, how quickly we can deal with them, how much it feels like a distraction from the, you know, taking out the main villain. But overall, I'm really excited about Cable, and the fact that Cable gets built up with these side schemes throughout the game and then eventually is this powerhouse who can deal 10 damage with a single 3-cost card is super, super wild. So really, really excited about Cable, and really, really excited about all the cards that they unveiled here. That being said, it is time to talk about Domino. We're going to start with the alter ego, which is Neena Thurman. So Thurman, I think I said that right. You guys should know by now. I mispronounce everything. 3 recovery, 9 hit points, lower on the lower side, 6 card hand size. Action here is choose a card in your hand, swap that card with the top card of your discard pile, limit once per round. Very cool mechanic, and we'll see the hero side does a similar thing. So you're essentially going to be rolling the dice like it is in the alter ego image here, and switching cards off the top of your discard pile from your hand to be able to get, you know, extra uses of cards. Or as we'll see on the hero side, you're going to take even more of a risk by doing that on your deck. So that is going to be a lot of what we see throughout all of Domino's cards. Is there's going to be this aspect of taking the top card of your deck. But specifically when you're in alter ego, you get a bit more foresight into what you're grabbing, because you can see the top card of your discard pile. Obviously, the top card of your deck is face down. So very, very cool. You can look at this as like, you know, it's not a full-on drawing a card because you're switching from your hand, but you get to get rid of a dead card in your hand potentially for something more valuable off the top of your discard pile every single alter ego phase. Okay, so Domino. 1 thwart, 2 attack, 3 defense, 1, 2, 3. Hand size of 5 goes down by 1. When counting resources on cards discarded from the top of your deck, count each printed wild resource twice. Really, really important. That might not make like super sense right now, but it will as we get into other cards. There's going to be tons of stuff where you're looking at the top card of your deck with Domino and looking at the printed resources, and that's going to affect how powerful the card is. Whenever you see a wild resource with Domino, you are going to count it twice. Hugely important. We'll see why as we get into other cards. Her next ability is action. Choose a card in your hand, swap that card with the top card of your deck. So this is the same thing as her alter ego, except you don't know what's on top of your deck. You're taking a risk, and you're also putting the card in your hand on top of your deck that you're going to draw it next turn. Could be bad that you want to get rid of this card, but now you have to you're delaying when you're using it. Could be good in that I am not ready for this card right now, but I will be next turn. Let's put it on top of my deck and I'll draw into it for my next turn. So lots of flexibility there, really cool ability overall. Okay, so Diamondback is the signature ally, 2 cost, 2 health, 1 thwart, 1 attack. Pretty standard stat line for a 2-cost ally. Action, exhaust Diamondback to deal 1 damage to her and discard the top card of your deck. Deal 1 damage to each enemy for each resource icon discarded this way. So again, there is a ceiling. More often than not, it's going to just be 1 resource that you draw into. But with Domino specifically, there's tons of opportunities for that to increase. And then you start to get into wild territory where you're doing 2 damage or 3 damage to every enemy on the board, which it becomes this wild board clear. And you got an ally in play that can act as a blocker. Like, there's so much potential with Diamondback, but again, it's going to be somewhat situational. There's going to be those times where the card on top just ends up being a dud, and you're going to be really disappointed by Diamondback's like bonus effect, and she's just going to be a chump blocker. But that ceiling is super exciting. That I think overall this is going to be a really powerful card. A good workout is a 2-cost event. Hero action, deal 4 damage to an enemy and discard the top card of your deck. For each resource icon discarded this way, deal 1 additional damage to that enemy. So again, with Domino, if you're discarding a wild resource off the top of your deck, you're getting an extra 2 damage, which means you're doing 6 damage for 2. Phenomenal value for that right there. And there is even a way we'll get into later that you could be discarding 3 cards or 3 resources off the top of the deck. And at that point, you're doing 7 damage for 2. So really powerful ceiling. Again, even if you only draw into 1 resource off the top of the deck, doing 5 damage for 2 is still really good. It's not like it becomes a dud or anything. So I think overall this card's gonna be really good, but when it hits that highest ceiling, you're gonna feel really good using this card. Luck Be a Lady, 1 cost event, discard the top card of your deck and count the resources on it. For each resource counted this way, if it is and we're gonna go through every resource here, energy resource, heal 2 damage from a character, mind resource, remove 2 threat from a scheme, I always want to say fist resource, so bad. Aggression resource, deal 3 damage to an enemy. Wild resource, choose one of the above. And again, wild is important here because if you drew into a wild, you get to choose one of the above twice because you count them twice. So you get to have free reign of any of these twice, which is really, really good for 1 cost. That's actually like insanely, again, you could do 6 damage for 1 if you look at it that way. Really, really, really good. So Luck Be a Lady has tons of high potential, but again, if you don't draw into wild resources, you're at the mercy of whatever that resource is on top. And sometimes you might heal 2 damage from a character and realize, I don't have any characters to heal, it's a dud. So there's a potential for this to just be nothing, and there's a potential for this to be something that completely swings that round in your favors. It's really just going to come down to what that is on the top of your deck. And again, that's pretty much all of what Domino's character is. If you're someone who doesn't like luck-based stuff in games, Domino's likely not going to be a character that is going to be among your favorite. But if you like that aspect of, sometimes it doesn't work out for you, but sometimes it really, really does, there's going to be tons of that in here, and Luck Be a Lady is an example of that. Domino's Pistol, so 2 cost upgrade, it's a restricted card, hero action, attack, exhaust Domino's Pistol, choose an enemy and discard the top card of your deck. Deal 1 damage to that enemy for each resource icon discarded this way. This attack gains ranged as well. Awesome card here because it's a set, yes, it might be a small amounts of damage, but again, you can use the pistol every single turn. Like this is an ongoing effect that you're gonna be able to do, constantly doing that off the top of your deck. Yes, another thing to consider is you're constantly discarding cards off the top of your deck. Discarding cards is not something that's always gonna be beneficial to be getting rid of things that you otherwise wanna be using, but to have that constant sorts of damage that's gonna scale, and sometimes, I shouldn't say scale, but sometimes, instead of being just 1 damage, it's going to be 3 or something, is really good. And it's getting this out early especially means you're going to be hitting this every turn, and all that damage is going to add up. So really powerful potential on this, but again, there's going to be some turns where it just feels a lot weaker. Probability Field is a 2 cost upgrade. When you use a basic power, discard the top card of the deck. You get +1 to that power for that use for each resource icon discarded this way. Again, we're seeing this common theme. This is really, really good. It turns her, one thwart, or was it 1 attack? 1 thwart. Turns her 1 thwart into potentially upwards of like 3 thwart, 4 thwart if you're super lucky, just from doing a basic attack because you have probability field the right way. So again, high ceiling, but I've said this among all Domino's cards, it's going to be situational. You don't know what you're always going to be drawing into or discarding into off the top of your deck. Sometimes it's going to feel great, sometimes it might feel not so great, but getting that boost to your basic powers is really, really good. Pip the Pug, already my favorite card because it's a dog. Because it's a dog, I should say. 1 cost support, alter ego action, exhaust Pip the Pug, put 1 Domino or Posse card from your discard pile on top of your deck. This is really good because it also makes it so that you know exactly what resources is on top of your deck, which makes it a lot easier to plan for other cards you're going to be using. That alone is really good. Plus, you're getting a card back from your discard pile that you're going to draw into, and so you're essentially drawing a card delayed, which is really good because you're going to select a card you hopefully really, really want. The Posse card specifically is something important that we're about to get into. I don't know if it's on the next card, but there's going to be some Posse allies, and then Domino has the Posse trait as well, that are going to have a team-up card with all 3 Posse characters. So this is just a way to be able to get those cards a little bit more effectively as well. Okay, probably my favorite card in the entire Domino pack because of how useful it is in Domino specifically. That is Jackpot. This is a resource card that has 3 resources generated: energy, mind, and aggression, strength. And after this card is discarded from the top of your deck, shuffle it back into your deck. The most ideal situation for Jackpot is if it is the card on top when you flip over, because you get 3 resources on it, which is obviously super rare. And not only that, but it doesn't get discarded like it should. If it should be discarded, it gets shuffled back into your deck. Jackpot will keep cycling through. That is so ridiculously good. I'm curious how many copies of Jackpot are going to be in Domino. I mean, if we get more than 1, fantastic. Having Jackpot come up is it is the thing you're hoping for every time you flip a card, and specifically to discard because you used one of Domino's abilities. This is what you're hoping to be on there, and every time you hit that Jackpot, it's going back inside your deck. Really, really amazing card. Cannot wait to use it. All right, Wolfsbane. Wolfsbane is a Justice Ally, 3 cost, 3 health, 2 thwart, 1 attack. Response on Wolfsbane is after Wolfsbane thwarts, name a card type, then discard the top card of your deck. If that card is of the named type, you may add it to your hand. Again, very situational because you have to really have a good grasp of not only what you've built your deck as, but also what's in your discard pile, what's in your hand, what do you think is left in your deck. That probability to be able to properly guess what the card type is going to come into play big time to be able to hit this. If you've used cards like, Pip the Pug or whatever, where you know the card on the top, makes it a lot easier. You can kind of manipulate this a little bit. But I think this is going to be situational to the point of how well can you, know your deck to hit this more often than not to get that extra bonus. Team Investigation. So this is a 2-cost alliance card, which means the players can pay this card's cost as a group, and it's 2 costs per player. I should have said there's a little player icon there. Hero action, remove 3 threat per player from a side scheme. So really cool scaling card where if you're playing solo, it only costs 2 and it removes 3 threat. But if you're playing, from a side scheme specifically, if you're playing with 2 players, suddenly it costs 4 because it's 2 per player, but everyone can help pay for it, and now it removes 6 threat because it's 3 per player. So it's an interesting scaling card that is going to be, probably more beneficial in multiplayer games than it is going to be in solo because of the alliance. I don't know that I would use this ever in a solo game, especially because it's restricted to side schemes and there's just way better options. But in multiplayer, especially if you're, building something around somebody using cable and wanting to get rid of side schemes more frequently, this could be really, really powerful. A really neat card. All right, speaking of side schemes, this is a Justice side scheme, player side scheme called Take Out the Guards. It's 0 cost, victory 0. When defeated, each player may discard 1 non-elite minion from play. Really good. You're essentially just defeating a minion. And yes, it's the non-elites, and usually the elites are the ones that are most pesky, but there's some nasty non-elite minions out there that are just annoying. They're more distractions than anything. You want to be doing something, instead you're dealing with this minion. This just allows you to be able to focus on just removing the threat from here instead, which maybe you're more effective at, and then you get to get rid of a minion for every single player. So really, really powerful potential. Not quite as powerful as the other side schemes we've looked at, unless it depends on the villain you're playing and what kind of minions are in the deck. So a little bit more situational is maybe how I'd word it. Overwatch is a 0 cost upgrade, which is attached to a scheme, max 1 per scheme. When any amount of threat is removed from that attached scheme by a thwart, discard this card, remove an equal amount of threat from a different scheme. Really powerful potential here. You just have to prioritize using it at the right moment. So 0 cost upgrade means that you don't have to, you're never gonna have to worry about paying for this in conjunction with something else. You're just going to be able to get that out really easily, but you want to put it out at a time where you're then going to do a big thwart on that scheme to have that trickle onto another one. So it's timely and it's situational in the sense, a lot of cards, you've been using the word situational. I think both these heroes just have a lot of those types of cards, but you just really want to time this so that you're using your big thwart after, and then you're getting the maximum value out of it. If you do that, this is going to feel very powerful. Okay, I mentioned the Posse cards. Now we're rounding back to them. So these are the Posse allies that are, I think there's 2 of them. Yeah, so one of them is a hero-specific ally, one of them is a basic. The first one we're gonna look at is Outlaw. This is the hero-specific one for Domino. 3 cost, 3 health, 1 thwart, 1 attack. Toughness, which is great on an ally. When Outlaw attacks, discard the top card of your deck. Outlaw gets +1 attack for this attack for each resource icon discarded this way. All around, just a really powerful ally. The fact that it comes with toughness on it out of the gate, the fact that that 1 attack is always going to be, or I think most of the time, is going to be at least 2 from you discarding the top card off the deck, if not more. If you hit Jackpot, for instance, it's going to be a full-on 4 attack, and you can do that up to 3 times because she has 3 health. Lots of value with Outlaw, just a really powerful ally all around. Then we've got White Fox, which is the basic ally, 3 cost, 3 health, 1 thwart, 1 attack as well. After White Fox is discarded from the top of your deck, put her into play under your control, which means you want White Fox to be the card that you hit when you're doing other things with Domino, because you get a free ally into play, which is obviously really, really good. That's, if you don't hit that, this is just an ally you don't want to be playing from your hand, but if you can find a way to, make sure that happens, or just get lucky with White Fox being on top, you're gonna have a really good time getting a free ally into play. And then we have the team up card, the Posse. So this is 2 cost event, max 1 per deck. Play only if you control at least 3 characters with the Posse trait. Remember, Domino has a Posse trait, so you just have to have Outlaw and White Fox in play. The hero action is then heal 1 damage from each Posse character and ready them. This is a really good card, don't get me wrong. I almost wish the power level on it was a little bit higher. I have to wait to see in practice, but I just feel like it's not going to be super easy to get the entire all 3 Posse characters in play. And maybe if I don't know enough about the Posse characters from the comics. I don't know if there's more that could be introduced in future cards where you have more options. But right now, there's just, you have to get these 2 specific cards in play and have Domino obviously in play, which you would if you're playing Domino, to be able to use I'm calling it a team-up card. It's not even labeled as a team-up card. I'm just used to that being the case. I just feel like for those conditions, the power level could have been higher. Could have been like heal 2 damage from each Posse character and ready them or something. I don't know. But either way, still really good, especially on the allies. They get that extra heal and extra use out of them, and to ready 3 different characters. I don't want to like undersell it. It's still a very good card. I just feel like I'm selfish. I wanted it to be a little more powerful. That is it. Okay, so that is Cable and Domino. Honestly, both seem really, really exciting. If I'm being honest, I think I'm much more excited for Cable, just because even though I don't mind luck in games, I think that Domino has a lot of luck-driven elements with what's on the top of your deck, and I imagine getting frustrated sometimes that not hitting that card or not being able to manipulate it the way I want. Whereas with Cable, everything is built around a brand new card type, which is super exciting that we're even getting that in the game. And it just seems like one that if you play effectively, Cable becomes a powerhouse. So either way, very exciting, and obviously very exciting that we're getting a brand new expansion for Marvel Champions, the next evolution. Let me know what you think in the comments, if you how excited you are to have Marvel Champions back. I do want to quickly mention, I probably should have done this at the beginning, I know there's Marvel Champions content that I haven't got around to doing, like the Mutant Genesis review and the last 2 hero packs as well I haven't reviewed. Honestly, there's just been way too much going on in like the channel life and personal life and work life and everything, and there was so much Marvel Champions stuff coming out for a while there that it was just really hard to keep up, and now I'm in a bit of a catch-up mode, and in some ways it's even hard to go back to something like Mutant Genesis at this point, because I never finished the full campaign. I'd have to I think I'd have like just the last scenario left, so I'd have to go back and start it from the beginning because I forget so much about what I was doing, and it's now so far past that we're already talking about the next expansion. I don't know how much interest there is to still hear the review of Mutant Genesis. All that being said, we do have Braden on the channel now, who's a massive Marvel Champions fan as well. He's expressed interest in jumping in for some of these as well. So maybe you'll see Braden review one of these, or both me and Braden kind of jointly review some of these. Even going forward, you might see some of that. So we get a lot of comments about where this stuff is. We do see them. We just don't have an answer right now. But fear not, Marvel Champions content, you'll see, or as you're seeing right now with this video, is still here, and we're still covering it. And we're really excited, obviously, for the Marvel Champions future. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.